Today's video is the functions review practice. So number one, it says the value of an investment grows based on the function, and it gives you this function. It says where V is the value in dollars that they earn after time. It says to the nearest cent, what is the value of the investment over 8 years? So 8 years is represented as T. So all we're going to do is this now becomes, instead of V of T, it becomes V of 8 equals 1,000 plus 1 plus, sorry, I'm having a hard time reading that number, plus 0.06, all raised to the 8th. So the T value is located right here. It is just a little hard to see. So I'm going to go ahead and type this into my calculator. So 1,000, parenthesis, 1 plus 0.06, quantity raised to the 8th. Did I hit graph? Oh my goodness. Enter. I hit graph by accident. I'm so used to graphing. So looking at our answer choices, the closest one is option C. That is raised to the nearest cent. Option C. So this is just a function. We're just plugging in 8 for T. Number 2, in a standard xy coordinate plane, the graph f of x equals 8, and the graph g of x equals 63 x cubed. They intersect at AB. What is the value of A? So remember, when you're dealing with coordinates, A is going to represent the x value, where B is going to represent the y value. They are intersecting, which means the y values, f of x, this is just a y, and this is just a y. The y values equal each other when they are intersecting. So all you're actually going to do is set this equal to each other. So I'm going to divide by 64, so I get 8 over 64 equals x cubed, and then you cube root. So whenever you are working with this kind of problem, okay, whenever you're working with functions, the f of x part or the g of x part, that represents the y value. So you want to be very careful when you're working with these. So if it's intersecting, that means they're crossing at the same location. So those functions actually have to equal each other. So that equals 1/2. So all you have to do is set the functions equal to each other because they are intersecting, which means when you're graphing the line, so f of x equals 8, that's y equals 8, that's a graph that goes like this, and then something like this goes like that. So they're crossing at a point. You're trying to find where they cross. Since you're looking for, in this problem, the value of A, the value of A is represented as the x value. So you're only solving for x. You actually don't care at all what the y value is. All right. Number 3, if for a non-zero value of k, that just lets you know 0 can't be in the denominator. If f of 2 equals 2, then k equals blank. So in this problem, all we're going to do is substitute. F of 2, okay, f of 2 would be here. So f of 2 equals 2. So I'm going to replace f of 2 with what it equals. It equals 2. Now the x value is actually the number inside of the parenthesis. So we're also going to use another 2. So in this problem, the first 2, f of x equals 2, comes from here. The second 2 that's shown is the x value. So even though we have 2 2's in this problem, the x value 2 comes from inside of the function. So that's just going to make it a little bit easier. To solve, what I would recommend is cross multiply, and I'll put a 1 underneath here. So 2k equals 1 times all that. 2 minus 1 is negative, or 2 minus 3, sorry, is negative 1. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So my k value is equal to negative 1/2, which is option C. So in that problem, it's a little tricky. It's just substitution, so just be careful. Okay. Next, if f of x equals x squared and g of x equals 72 minus x, what is the smallest value for when f of x equals g of x? So I'm going to go ahead and set these equal to each other, hopefully you recognize, hey, I've got a squared value and I have just an x. That means I'm going to factor. So to factor, I have to make everything equal 0. So I'm going to move everything to the other side, keeping the x squared positive. You could also graph these if you want. So if you were to graph them, you would have to actually calculate the minimum and maximum, or sorry, not those, the zeros of these functions. But in this case, I'm actually just going to factor because it's a little bit easier. So since the a value is 1, I can do that shortcut method we learned in chapter 2. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 72 but add to positive 1. So the numbers in this case would be 9 and 8. In order to figure out the negative, I'm going to look down here. 9 minus 8 would add to negative 1. So in my parentheses, I can have x plus 9 times x minus 8 equals 0. So now I'm actually just going to solve these individually. So x plus 9 equals 0. So our first value is negative 9. And then I also have x minus 8 equals 0, so x equals positive 8. We're looking for the smallest value, and the smallest number is negative 9, which is option A. Number 5, the number of patients seen by a doctor over a day is represented by P of t equals 18 minus 5. What is the total number of patients seen after t hours? Based on the function, how many patients are seen between 5 and 6 hours? So what you have to do is, the first thing you have to do is P of 5. So that would be 8 times 5 minus 5. So 40 minus 5 is 35. Then we have to know how many patients we see by the 6th hour. So 8 times 6 minus 5. 8 times 6 is 48, minus 5 is 43. So if we want to know how many patients we've seen between the 5th and 6th hour, we take P of 6 and subtract it from P of 5. So by the time the 6th hour is over, we have seen 43 patients. By the time the 5th hour is over, we saw 35. So 43 minus 35 is 8. So we have seen 8 patients between those 2 hours. Again, just functions, we're just substituting values. Number 6, for which value of x will g of x equal negative x squared plus 10 be negative? So in this problem, you can do a lot of values. What I would recommend is just substituting. So in this problem, I would just substitute into the problem. I honestly would not try to solve it. So we're looking for which value of x would give us g of x being a negative. So our answer has to equal some kind of negative number. So it doesn't matter what it actually is, but we need it to equal a negative. So I'm going to start with A. So negative 4 squared plus 10. That would give us negative 4 squared is 16. Negative 16 plus 10 equals negative 6. That is a negative number. So A is the correct answer. Sorry, let me check this phone call real fast. Okay. I'm just going to let it ring. I will call them back. Sorry. Okay, next. We can continue to test these. So if I did like negative 3 squared plus 10. Negative 3 squared is 9. So that would be negative 9 plus 10. That would give me a positive answer. Notice the difference. We're looking for which answer will provide us with a negative number. So this one does not work. Option A does. I would just substitute into the answer choices. Number 7, if f of x equals 1/2 x squared and g of x equals 2x, then what is the value or values of x? Is f of g of x equal 8? In this problem, ignore this first portion. So the g of x function is 2x. So I'm going to replace g of x with 2x, and I'm left with f of 2x. So when I substitute, I'm going to get 1/2 2x quantity squared. Now this now equals 8. So at the end, substitute first, then you make it equal 8. So I'm just going to ignore that, complete the composition, and make it equal 8. So now to simplify, 1/2, distribute the squared because it's multiplying. So 2 squared is 4x squared equals 8. Half of 4 is 2, so this now becomes 2x squared equals 8. I'll divide by 2 to get 4. And then to simplify, I will square root to get positive or negative 2. Now, you can always check your answers by plugging them in. So g of x, so if I plug in the positive, 2 times 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16, divided by 2 is 8. And then I can also test the negative. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16, sorry. And then divided by 2 is also positive 8. So in these problems, you're going to plug into the function. You just want to check your work. So turns out that both of those do actually work, so you are good to go. So just check it, make sure that it does equal 8. Number 8, all we're doing is substituting f of 1 into the problem, so this now becomes 2 times 1 times 1 minus 1 quantity squared. So 2 times 1 is 2. 1 minus 1 is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. So this one is just trying to be a little bit tricky. Remember, you have to kind of keep these separate until the end. Then you'll multiply them together. So just be mindful of the orders of operations here. Number 9, if g of a, b equals 4ab minus b plus a, then for what value of b, so we're looking for b, is g of 1 comma b greater than 0? Notice in this problem, the a has been changed. The a value has changed to 1, which means when we're substituting into our answer, or into our equation, we're going to replace every time we see an a with 1. Now, we want our answer to be larger than 0. So I'm going to change it from an equal sign to greater than 0, and then I'm going to substitute. 4 times 1b minus b plus 1. Notice what we've done is we've just substituted the 1 into the a slot. So 4 times 1 is 4, times b is 4b, minus b plus 1 greater than 0. Combining like terms, this would become 3b plus 1 greater than 0. Subtracting 1 would give us 3b is greater than negative 1. And dividing by a positive 3 will not flip the inequality. So we're looking for b greater than negative 1/3, which is option C. Again, just substitution and simplifying. Number 10 is another composition. Notice how it says fog. You can rewrite this as f of g of 7. So another way to rewrite that, so what I'm going to do is go to the g of x function and make it g of 7. So negative 5 times 7 minus 8 gives me an answer of negative 43. So what that means is when I go back into my problem, I'm going to replace g of 7 with negative 43. So this now becomes f of negative 43. So now I go into my f function. This becomes negative 43 plus 10. Notice how I'm using this function here. Negative 43 plus 10 is negative 33, which is the value of your composition, option D. So again, on these kinds of problems, just work it a step at a time and go from there. Don't overcomplicate it by trying to do it all at once. It'll really mess you up. All right, continuing on. Number 11. To do number 11, it says for all values of x not equal to 4, f of x equals x squared minus 3x minus 4 all over x over 4. So what you need to do is actually factor the top. So you're looking for two numbers that multiply to equal negative 4. And those same two numbers have to add to equal negative 3. Those two numbers are negative 4 and positive 1. So negative 4 and positive 1. So I'm going to simplify the top. That's going to become x minus 4 times x plus 1 all over x minus 4. These can cancel because they're binomials. So this one can cancel this one, and you are left with just x plus 1, which is option E. Number 12, which of the following is equivalent to g of ax or a squared minus 10? So this problem is going to take just a little time. We're going to substitute. This is going to become a squared minus 10, quantity squared, plus a squared minus 10 minus 5. To do this problem, I'm going to change to a capital A so it's a little bit easier to follow. You do have to break it up like this. So when you simplify, you have to distribute. So a squared times a squared is a to the 4th. Then a squared times negative 10 is negative 10a squared. Do it again, negative 10a squared. Negative 10 times negative 10 is positive 100. Bring down the a squared, and then I'm going to simplify this to negative 15. Now I'm just going to combine, so I have a to the 4th. The negative 10a is negative 20a squared. And then I also have another a squared over here, so this is actually going to simplify again. But now I'm going to combine this one here and this one here to give me positive 85. And I'm going to bring down my a squared because I accidentally missed it. So that's my fault. You can combine them all at once if you want, but I just made a mistake. I didn't see it. So we'll just combine it here at the end. So a to the 4th minus 19a squared plus 85 is answer choice E. Okay, number 13. X equals 4 and y equals negative 1. Let's solve. So x is 4, so this becomes 4 raised to the negative 1, or times the negative 1 raised to the 4th, plus 4 to the 3rd times negative 1. So 4 comes down. Negative 1 raised to the 4th is just a positive 1. And then 4 raised to the 3rd, okay, 4 raised to the 3rd is 64. And we're going to multiply that by negative 1. So this becomes 4 minus 64 for an answer of negative 60. This is just a substitution, but you want to be very careful when substituting that you're paying attention to what's being raised to powers, so you are simplifying correctly. Number 14, if one of the solutions to the equation is x minus 5 times 2x plus 2 times ax minus b equals 7 is negative 7, which of the following is a possibility for values a and b? So in this problem, what you're going to do is you're looking for what solution is going to give you negative 7. Okay, well this solution is 5. This solution is negative 2 because you're setting them equal to 0, which means the ax minus b has to be the one that's going to give me a value of negative 7. So what I would recommend is you always are solving for the value of x when you're calculating zeros. So I'm going to keep that in mind. I'm going to add b. So I'm going to be left with negative 7 plus b. Okay. And then my x value, I'm going to divide everything by a. So I'm looking for which one of these answer choices is going to simplify to negative 7. Okay, I'm looking for what answer for x value is going to give me negative 7. Oh, I am so sorry. I just realized that I'm sorry, guys. I need to fix this. That's my fault. Okay. I can't cut it out. I'm sorry. We're looking for which solution is going to be negative 7. So what that means is this value has to equal 0. So I'm still solving for x. Okay, I'm still solving for x. But now in the case of our value, we're trying to see what fraction reduces to negative 7. So this fraction has to equal negative 7. So that is completely my fault. I'm sorry about that. I misread the problem, and my answer key that I was looking at was not very helpful. So remember, when you're working with solutions, they have to equal 0, and we're looking for which one is going to give us an x value that actually equals 7. So I'm just going to test my answer choices. So option A, B is on top, so 1 over negative 7. That does not equal negative 7. So A is not the correct answer. Option B, The b value is -7 over a is 1. That does equal -7, so b is my correct answer. So on that problem, again, where I messed up is I accidentally set this equal to -7, not 0. My goal here is to make the fraction equal -7. So I did get thrown off by that -7, and I guarantee that's what some of you probably did too, and it's probably like really confusing. All right, number 14. It says, given the values on the table for the function f of x, which of the following is a solution to the equation f of 2 over 4 equals 12x? So in this problem, f of 2, so when you're reading f of 2, this value that is listed here, f of 2, the 2 is the x value, okay? So your value for 2 is x. So when you're working this equation, we're looking at f of 2. So f of 2, I'm going to look for 2, and my f of 2 value is basically saying when I plug 2 into my function, I get 8 out. So when I'm substituting, f of 2 is going to become 8 over 4 equals 12x. So I'm going to cross multiply here. So 8 times 1 is 8. 12 times 4 is 48x. Divide both sides by 48. So 1 over 48 is 1 over 6, which is option C. So in this problem, it makes it tricky because it wants f of 2 and it wants you to plug in 2, but f of 2 is technically 8 because I'm plugging in 2 for my x, and f of 2 represents a y value, in this case 8, and then you just solve for x for here. Number 16, in the xy coordinate plane, the graphs of f of x and g of x intersect at AB. If a is less than 0, what is the value of b? So in this problem, it is a factor problem. Intersecting means they equal each other. So the y values equal each other, which means I'm going to set this as 2x squared plus 14 equals x squared plus 30. I want to keep x squared positive, so I'm going to subtract x squared, leaving me with just x squared. And then I'm going to move the 30, leaving me with -16. Hopefully you remember the difference of squares. This is the difference of squares, so it's x minus 4 in one parenthesis, x plus 4 in the other parenthesis. So our potential x values are 4 and -4. I just solved for x. Now, we're looking for an a value. Remember, in our coordinate, an a value is the same as the x value. We're looking for it less than 0. So we have to use the -4. Well, to help us solve for b, b is represented as our y value. So in these kinds of problems, they are going back and forth between f of x and y. So this is now going to be 2 times -4 squared, I'm plugging it into f, plus 14. That will give you an answer, and I'll change this to -4. And when you simplify, you'll get an answer of 46. That is actually going to represent the value of b, which is in the y location. So the value of b is whatever f of -4 equals, which is answer choice E. You would get the same answer if you plugged it into the g of x function. I just chose f of x. All right, number 17. I know this is quite a long worksheet, so this video might be a little bit longer than some of the other ones. All right, number 17. For 0 is less than or equal to t is less than or equal to 9, the motion of a particle can be modeled by this function, -t squared plus 9t. Where s is the height of the particle in feet and t is seconds. Well, it says, what is the height of the particle at 4 seconds? All you're going to do is this now becomes s of 4. So -4 squared plus 9 times 4. 4 squared is 16, so this becomes -16 plus 36. So s of 4, so at 4 seconds, the height of the particle is 20 feet. Number 18, if the function x squared minus 9x plus 8 is graphed, which of the following will graph below the x-axis? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull up my graphing calculator. Turn it on. I'm going to graph it how I see it. So this is x squared minus 9x plus 8. I'm going to graph, and we're looking for which values are going to be graphed below the x-axis. Well, notice between the roots, the root of 1 and 8, that it graphs below the x-axis. So our x values, anything between 1 and 8, will graph below the axis, which is option D. So in this problem, I would graph the function. That is the best kind of way to do this problem, is to graph it. No need to waste your time factoring, just graph it. Number 19, based on the following table, what is the minimum number of zeros? So when it is a 0, that is when the function, okay, g of x equals 0, okay? So in this problem, I see a 0 here and a 0 here. That means that I can only assume that 2 are zeros, -5 and -3. And the reason you can only assume that is because that's all the chart shows you. It only shows you 2 zeros, so you can only assume that the graph only has 2 zeros because it says based on the table. So all we have to look at is the table. Remember, the g of x function is y. When y is 0, remember, for an intercept, you have a number, comma, 0. This represents the x-intercept. And the x-intercept is the same as a 0 or a root. Number 20, we're basically just evaluating this function for 1/2. So this becomes 1/2 quantity cubed divided by 4. So if you're going to do it in your calculator, which you totally can, I'm all for that, I would recommend just doing it in pieces. So the first thing I would do is raise the 1/2, raise it to the third, and then in my calculator, I'm just going to hit divide by 4. Math, enter, enter. We'll change that to a fraction of 1/32. So I would recommend just using your calculator. Takes no time at all to solve that problem. If you wanted to do it by scratch, like this would become 1/8 divided by 4, and that basically would change to 1/8 times 1/4, which would give you 1/32. So either way, this is the calculator, this is how you would do it by hand. All right, 21, moving right along. F of x equals 20 and x equals 3. Which of the following is equivalent to f of x? So in this problem, we're looking for which value is going to give you 20. So in this problem, it says f of 3. So if x is 3, it has to give you 20. We're looking for what answer, if I plug 3 in, is also going to give me 20. Well, 17 times 3 is not 20. 20 times 3 is not 20. 20 times 3 is 60 minus 10. So this would be like 20 times 3 minus 10. So 20 times 3 is 60, minus 10 is 50. That does not equal 20. This one would be 10 times 3, which is 30, minus 10, and that does equal 20. Notice how these match. So D is the correct answer. You're just using your answer choices to simplify. 22, we are just dividing g of x over f of x. So my g of x function is x squared minus x minus 6. Over my f of x function, f plus 2. Hopefully you recognize in this problem that you have to factor the top. Okay, that has to be done. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to -6, and those same two numbers must add to equal -1. So 3 and 2 are my numbers, but the 3 is the -1. So the 3 has to be negative. Again, this is review, so I'm not really talking about how to factor very much, because factoring is review. Like we've learned it in chapter 2. So if you're struggling with factoring, you might want to re-watch some of those tutorial videos on how to factor, because I'm not going to go into detail on how to factor because we've already talked about it. So anytime you see that quadratic up top and then just a simple x plus 2 or an x plus or minus a number on the bottom, factoring is your friend. So in that case, these two can cancel and I'm just left with x minus 3. 23, what is if f of b equals 18, what does b equal? So in this problem, it's basically the same idea. We have a function. If we plug the letter b in for x, we get out 18. So basically, you have an equation, 2x plus 6. It has to equal 18. So now we're just going to solve. So I'm going to subtract 6. That will give me 12, and dividing by 2 would give me 6. So all this is saying is, hey, I'm plugging in some random number b. So you could actually change all of these to b if you wanted to, and it would equal 18. And you're just solving for x, which in turn is b. 24, what is a possible value of x? What I would do is factor. So x squared minus 8x plus 15 equals 0. Again, I'm just moving this so that x squared is positive. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to positive 15. Those same two numbers have to add to negative 8. So those numbers are 5 and 3. In order for them to add to a negative, they both actually have to be negative. So to factor, this would be x minus 5 times x minus 3 equals 0. Setting each piece equal to 0, I'll get an answer of x equals 5 and x equals positive 3. The only answer choice that works is option E. Now you could, if you had no idea what to do, you could do guess and check and just plug in all these values into your equation and see which one's equal on both sides. All right, number 25. We've got an equation that it is graphed. We want to know when y equals 0, what is the best solution value for x? Well, when y equals 0, that means that you have an x-intercept. So x-intercept means it's crossing. It's crossing here and it's crossing here. Well, we have two distinct positive solutions. Well, that's not true because one of the solutions is negative. So this one's out. Two negative solutions. No, one of them is positive. It crosses in a positive location. One positive real and one negative real. That one is the true one because you can clearly see that this is the negative real solution and this one is the positive real solution. So you don't even actually care about what the graph is. All you have to do is look at the xy axis and kind of interpret the graph. 26. We want to find out what f times, oh, sorry, that is a negative sign. That is subtract. F of w minus g of w. So f of w is 4w squared minus 4w minus 8 minus a big parenthesis, because remember, you have to make sure that you put everything in parentheses. So when you do that, you have to distribute the negative. So this will become negative 2w squared minus 3w plus 6. So now to simplify, 4w and negative 2w, that simplifies to just 2w. Okay, so 4w squared minus 2w squared is 2w squared. So right off the bat, I'm going to cross off option B and D. Then I have a negative 4w and a negative 3w for a negative 7w. This one does not match, so by default it is A. Now, if I were to finish this problem, it would just be minus 2 by combining negative 8 and positive 6. But I'm not going to do that because I don't need to. So our final answer is located here. All right, the next one is us multiplying these two functions together. So 2u minus 4 times u squared plus 2u minus 7. I have given you all a doozy of a problem. So 2u times u squared is 2u cubed. 2u times positive 2u is positive 4u squared. And then 2u times negative 7 is negative 14u. Then I'm going to shift to the -4. And this is a 4, and I purposely think that they use the letter U so you confuse it with the letter 4. So -4 times U squared is -4U squared. -4 times +2U is -8U. And then -4 times -7 is +28. Now I'm going to combine. 2U cubed is my first value. I have a 4U squared and a -4U squared, meaning that those squared values actually cancel each other. -14U minus 8U is -22U. So at this point, hopefully you crossed out A and B because those both have U squared in them. And then I have -144 plus 28. That is, see, I did exactly what they wanted me to do. That is a oh, I've already combined those. I am so sorry, guys. This one combines with this one, and then I'm left with a plus 28. Here, let me go back and highlight them to make it a little easier. So here's the first one. Then my U squareds actually cancel. Then we combined these two to get -22U. Sorry, there's not really a lot of space on this problem. And then the 28 just gets brought down. There you go. So the correct answer here is option D. When you recognize the answer, you can go ahead and choose it. I'm just choosing to write down every single answer and every single piece of work to make this a little easier. I know this worksheet is long, stick with me. All right, we want to factor the polynomial below. So this is already broken up, so I'm going to just do factor by grouping. So in the first group, I'm going to pull out a 3x squared, and I would be left with x plus 1. Over here, I'm going to pull out just nothing, so that's going to be just a +1. And now I'm going to group 3x squared plus 1. And then bring down my x plus 1. So looking at my answer choices, I can clearly see that the answer is D. So this is just factor by grouping. Anytime you have 4 terms, pull out a GCF by factor by grouping. 29, find G of -6. So this becomes -6 plus 3 over -6 minus 1. -6 plus 3 is -3 over -7, which reduces to +3 over 7, which is option letter B. Number 30, the functions f and g are defined as mx plus b. So this represents a line, and this one represents a parabola because notice the squared, okay? In the standard xy coordinate plane, what is the maximum number of times that they will cross? Here's the thing that you should do. I would recommend graphing each of these pieces. So mx plus b is a line. So basically, I just have a g of x function that is a line. That is g of x. Then I have this f of x function. Anytime I've got a squared, that's a parabola. So what's happening in these problems, you've got your g of x function, and I'll go ahead and just write g of x. Then you have this yellow f of x function. We want to know how many times they cross. Well, maximum, they can cross 2 times. So it's just a line mixed with a parabola. How many times do lines and parabolas cross? They can cross a maximum of 2 times. Again, sketch the picture makes it a whole lot easier. Number 31, we are looking for the value of Q. Notice in this problem, they've written it as a coordinate again. So our Y value is 4. In these problems, f of x represents the Y value. So this becomes f of x. I'm just going to write it down here. We're going to replace f of x with 4. And we're trying to find Q. Well, Q is in the x location. So notice what's happening. F of x is always the Y value every single time. Then we're trying to find the value of Q. The value of Q is in the x location. So wherever I see an x, I'm going to replace it with Q. Now to solve, I'm going to add 5 to get 9 equals 3q. And when I divide by 3, I get 3 as an answer. So the value of q is 3. Just fancy substitution. Number 32, what is the value when a equals 10? So this becomes 9 times 10 minus the quantity of 10 squared. So 90 minus 10 squared is 100. 90 minus 100 is negative 10, which is option B. All right, we are on the final page of this practice. It has taken us a little while to get here, but that is okay. All right, we've got f of x function. We are looking for which one is equivalent to f of a minus 1. So anywhere I see an x, I'm going to replace it with a minus 1, and I am purposefully using capital A just to kind of make sure that we're all comfortable with the formula and it's a little easier to read and you don't accidentally think that it is a 2. So I'm going to go ahead and write that. Remember, you do have to distribute, so a times a is a squared. A times negative 1 is just negative a. Negative 1 times a is also negative a, and then negative 1 times 1 is positive 1. Then I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to combine these to negative 2. Now to simplify, I get a squared, and then I have in my problem, I'm going to highlight them this time so I don't lose track. Negative a plus negative a is negative 2a plus a positive a is going to leave me with a negative a. Then I have a positive 1 and a negative 2, so 1 minus 2 is negative 1, which is answer choice D. So just be mindful when you're distributing right here that you can't just distribute the squared. That's what they're hoping for, and they're hoping that you miss it. Okay, number 34, which of the following expressions would this be equal to? All you have to do is distribute. So in this problem, all I'm going to do, I can't distribute the squared, so I have to write it as 2m minus 6, 2m minus 6. So 2m times 2m is 4m squared. 2m times negative 6, negative 12m. Repeat again, negative 12m. Negative 6 times negative 6 is positive 36. So this will simplify to negative 12, and the negative 12 will be negative 24m plus 36, which is option, should be, what a typo. The correct answer is option D. So this x value, this should say, these should be m's. What a funny typo. I have never noticed that typo. No one has actually caught that typo. So that is how you should do that problem. Those should be m's. Number 35, when x is less than 0, what does x equal? So we've got, again, we have squared, so what I would recommend is, so 2x squared minus 6x equals negative 4. I would add 4 to the other side. And now I would just factor. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply. 2 times 4 is 8, so two numbers that multiply by 8. And those same two numbers must add to equal negative 6. The values that we are using are negative 4 and negative 2. And now I'm going to jump over here to do our factor by grouping. So I'm going to just slide over. I'm still left with the 2x squared, but now I'm going to have negative 4x minus 2x and then plus 4. Group the first two and the last two. My GCF is 2x. So this would be x minus 2. I'm going to pull a negative 2 out of the second group to leave me with another x minus 2. First parenthesis will be 2x minus 2, and the second parenthesis will be x minus 2. Remember, these are all equaling 0, so we actually have to solve. So 2x minus 2 equals 0. Add 2. Divide by 2 for 1. And then x minus 2 equals 0, and x equals positive 2. We're looking for values. Let me go back over to the problem now. We're looking for values that are less than 0. Well, both of these values are positive, so there is no such value because they're both positive. Number 36, which of the following is a factor of x to the fourth minus 16? This is a difference of squares, so this becomes x squared minus 4 times x squared plus 4. That is not an answer choice. However, there is another difference of squares right here. This is x minus 2, and this is x plus 2, bringing down our x squared plus 4. So the factor that actually is in this problem is x minus 2. So you actually have two difference of squares in this problem. All right, number 37, which of the following functions would f of x equal 0? So we're looking for f of x equaling 0. When does y equal 0? Y equals 0 at negative 6, which is option A. So at f of negative 6, it equals 0. So negative 6 is my answer because that is my value for x. And the last one, f of rs equals r times s minus r. So again, in this problem, fancy substitution. R is first, 2 is first, so r is going to equal 2. And then we also have s. And in the s location, we have negative 3. So this will become 2 times negative 3 minus 2. Sorry, I was writing that wrong. So again, our r value is 2. Our s value is negative 3. So 2 times negative 3 is negative 6 minus 2 is negative 8, which is option A.